Hey there, Aquarius, how you doing? So this is a forecast taking you on a journey of 2 weeks from now. So from the total lunar eclipse, the full moon in Virgo, right the way through to the partial solar eclipse, the new moon in Aries on the 29th of March. So this is 2 weeks, super busy because it's in between two super strong eclipses. Now, I'd love to say this is just all it's about is these eclipses, but we've also got the equinox, the spring equinox, the start of the astrological new year between spring 2025 and spring 2026. I have to say I'm much more for the cosmic new year, not the man-made new year on the 1st of January. So this is a really exciting year ahead that's about to start. We've currently got Venus retrograde. Mercury's going retrograde on the 15th. So this is going to be big. 2 personal planets going retrograde. It wasn't a million miles, it wasn't a long time ago that we had Mars retrograde as well. So it feels like we've gone through some really internal shifts, and those are continuing in these 2 weeks. We've also got 3 Cazimis and a couple of other massive conjunctions as well, 3 in particular that I can think of. So what I want to do is pace you through all of the occurrences of the next 2 weeks in such a way that you get a feeling of space. Not that it's all upon me and how am I going to cope with this, but from the perspective of let's do this. I understand what's coming. I know the possibilities and I'm up for it. So that's what I'm really going for here. If you're new to this channel, my name's Louisa Tanner Munson. Welcome to Feel Good Astrology. I always do my deliveries in such a way that I feel like I'm connecting with you. Slightly, sort of intuitive astrology. I do sometimes go off and do a bit of channeling as well. So who knows what's going to come up. I never really look at these charts before and plan what I'm going to say. I just do the charts, and then literally this is the first time I'm looking at it from your perspective as an Aquarius. So let's see what this half an hour or so brings up for us. So the first thing I want to just do is pace you through the kinds of energy that we're going through with this particular moon phase, which is a waning moon forecast. It's a waning moon phase we're in, literally from the full illumination of the moon right now, pulling back until we get to the complete lack of illumination, the total darkness of the new moon. And so they're very, very different energies. And so this full moon energy is absolutely about the fullness of life, the fullness of emotions. It's really indicating to you how on track you are. So often it's really quite normal to feel quite overwhelmed at a time of a full moon, in particular an eclipsed full moon. It's very, very strong. And I really do see that there are big shifts that take place according to where it's, hitting in your life. It creates a big change, a sense of newness, a sense of freshness, the letting go of one particular thing, and the allowance of something else. Now, this particular first eclipse is a South Node eclipse. The South Node is really showing us what we're letting go of, what we're allowing ourselves to totally complete on so that we can move forwards in a new way. So that's good. That's a good one to know. But, often if we feel overwhelmed and like we cannot possibly go on, like all of a sudden everything is just coming on and on and on, then that's usually an indication that the energy that you're being on a daily basis and maybe some of the things that you've planned to do, they're getting the better of you. And the full moon, everything is coming at us. So anywhere where our energy has been and being intending, and, when you're doing things, everything is creating an effect. It's a cause and effect. We really get the effects of all of our being at cause. And so you get a real clear view as to what's working and what's not. That's the beauty of the full moon. In fact, it really shows us what we're doing well and what we're not doing so well on, because we cannot hide it anymore. It's like everything comes into full view. It's externalized. We can see it's illuminated. We cannot hide from ourselves. And so if you're pretty up there and very organized, you might feel quite relieved by this. You might you might get the chance to bask in the joy and the illumination of your success. But most of us, we have a little bit of a wig, like we wig out, we get a little bit about something. And that's usually just an indication of what we need to work on. And so in this first week, towards the third quarter, which you'll see is half illuminated and half in the mystery of darkness, we are letting go of everything that we need to release. Anything that's too much, too soon, too too demanding, too emotional, all of these two words, that it's too heavy to carry the burden of it. You let it go. And this is what we're doing. We're in the process of letting go, releasing, really offloading and kind of clearing our space. And that's good because this is a complete clearing. When we get to the new moon, it's really good to have completely surrendered so that there's this empty space where you can play with your energy in a whole new way. I love that. And so as we're going into the second week, we're going into the unconscious mind, the unknown, the mystery of what's going on. So, you've got rid of all the obvious things in the first week, but in the second week, there's a sense maybe this isn't kind of working. And, your life will just kind of almost gracefully dance around the things you don't need. And so what I think this second week really requires is a lot of trust and a lot of patience. And I think it's really good to rest as well as if you're going into hibernation, but it's almost like an allowance of what needs to shift. And even if you don't know how to quite shift an emotion, you might breathe into it and allow it that way. But it's definitely an inside job. And really, as you come to the new moon, which would be the new moon in Aries on the 29th, we are absolutely at that stage of a clean slate. We're letting things go so we can drop a new seed down and see where that takes us. And so it's really creative process. And if we look at it as a diary, you'll see some of the big things that are coming in. So we've got the big moons, the quarter point, like the third quarter, halfway through. You can see Mercury retrograde the next day. You can just see how busy we are. In the first week, the sun is really making some big things, so the sun's coming into conjunction with the North Node and with Neptune, which is a Cazimi. And then we've got the Happy New Year. We're going into the equinox, and the sun goes into the sign of Aries, goes over that 0 Aries degree, the midpoint. It's significant. We are stepping forwards. We're stepping out of the old story of humanity, and we are decisively moving forwards into a new story. Now, it's interesting that we get these review points before we're moving forwards into this new story. The sun in a conjunction to the North Node. The North Node is about our destiny, our legacy, our fate, our karma, our purpose. Like, why are we here? And how do we know that we're here? So that is really coming into our mind's eye, and it's coming into our hearts. It's coming up as a conversation to talk about. And then on the 19th, the sun comes into a conjunction with Neptune. Now, lots of people talk about Cazimis, and I just want to describe it in a way that maybe relieves some of the jargon about it, because lots of people will give you the sort of astronomical definition of it, and it will say 8 degrees and 17 degrees and 0 degrees 17 and all these different specifications. But what I want to do is just describe what's going on as if you're at a party. So if you can just imagine for a moment that you are Neptune. Okay, you're at a party, you're being yourself, you're being a bit elusive and a bit mysterious because you're Neptune, and you're absolutely creative. And all of a sudden, there's a knock on the door and the sun bursts in, and the sun is larger than life. If you think of the solar system that we've been told, all the sizes of all these different planets and stuff, and obviously the sun is a star. So like the sun, the star bursts in and it's massive. It's so big in this room that all of a sudden Neptune can't be perceived anymore, or Neptune is a lot weaker. The sun's in the room, but he's over on like one side. So all of a sudden there's less there's less visibility of Neptune. It just feels like Neptune's almost not really there. And then the sun decides to step into the room and gets much closer to Neptune, and it's really, really, really hot. And Neptune feels like he's been burnt, and so we call this the first position, when the sun had just come into the room and was quite a distance but still in the same room as Neptune. That's known as being, Neptune is under the beams of the sun. It's not so perceived. Neptune becomes weaker when the sun gets into the room and steps right next to Neptune, and Neptune's really hot and kind of burnt up, and is not really perceived at all. We say that Neptune is combust because he's so close to the sun. The sun is really taking center stage. But then all of a sudden the sun sees Neptune and says, "Hey, Neptune, how you doing, mate?" And he goes right up to Neptune, and then they're together. And in that moment, when Neptune is in the heart of the sun, if you think of the size of the sun and the size of Neptune, teeny tiny by comparison, it would look like Neptune is right in the heart, and that the sun is all around like this beautiful, great big fiery halo. And so it's like, all of a sudden, whilst Neptune is in the eye of the sun, in the heart of the sun, right in the gaze of the sun, it feels like everything to do with Neptune is seen and visible, because the sun has made it so. The sun is kind of saying, "Hey, everyone, check out Neptune." And so the Neptune themes come on in leaps and bounds. So if you think Neptune, it's higher love, high intuition, your psyche, your creativity, being able to perceive other veils of reality, the nebulousness of psychic energy, grace, forgiveness, generosity, like being a martyr, but also being a hero, like a spiritual hero. All of these things are possible. There is a real sort of performance and an illusion with Neptune. And so these two are coming together on the 19th, right at the last degree of Pisces. And the last degree of Pisces is the last degree in the zodiac, because it starts at 0 Aries and it ends at 29 Pisces. And so there really is this sense that we're coming to the end of a story, but Neptune is all of a sudden highlighted, and it feels like we can understand the meaning of life, or the big step we're going through from one form of life to another. And so it's huge, and it gives us this very potentized Neptune experience for us to be able to work with. Now, it's a very slim time frame. It's not all day necessarily. There are particular times, and if you are a supporter of my channel, I've got a feel good astrology community. All the details are below. There is a handout that you can easily download, that's got the actual times of the Neptune Cazimi, the Venus retrograde Cazimi, the Mercury retrograde Cazimi, and I've put them in 5 different time zones so that you can find out how you might want to use it, and also some little prompts on what you might do during those times. You might ask yourself some questions to get your unconscious mind working with that energy. That to me seems really quite useful. So, this is I think quite an important day where you can have a breakdown to break through. So this is breaking through and saying goodbye to the old world and coming into a new world, which I think is significant. And then in the second week, we've got 2 of these Cazimis. So Venus retrograde followed by Mercury retrograde. I won't talk about these sextiles, actually. I put them in, but I realized there's just so much other stuff going on that they're not really getting a look in. But we've also got Mars square Chiron. There've been 3 of these in this set, and this is the last one. I really think this is showing where our vulnerability and our fear of moving beyond it, but also our frustration with wanting to get out of our vulnerability is really, really strong. The first square came up mid-October, and then the second came up on the 4th of February. So think about where were you feeling vulnerable around those times? Because if the 13th of October or the 4th of February ring a bell, it's active just a little bit before and also a little bit after. You could go a week before and a week after these dates, but it gives you a clue as to what you might be dealing with for a third time. And I think this is the time to resolve it. and you know, to let it go. And then just as we're coming into this new moon in Aries, again, this is the time when we're really kind of clearing away everything, getting ready to like birth a new reality. You know, Venus retrogrades back into Pisces, makes a conjunction with Neptune. I mean, Venus is love and flow and like a terrestrial version, and Neptune is a celestial love. You know, so these two lovers are coming together in the sign of Pisces. Venus is exalted there. And again, this is in the last degree of the zodiac. So again, super duper, like deep and almost like a wish come true, I think. And then we're coming in, forgive me, coming into the new moon in Aries. Such an important time. So 1 second. Yeah. So, I mean, that's such a deep energy, that Venus in Pisces in a conjunction to Neptune, really, really deep. And that's, I think, you know, giving you, I think, the perfect loving energy, the loving perspective that you might need to be able to like really dive into this new moon energy coming in, you know, like clean slate, but let's connect in with the heart. I mean, that's really great. Now, just before I bring up all the charts for you, Aquarius, I just want to say a big thank you to everybody that supports this channel, that's been supporting it since I started it. You know, everyone who is involved with this channel and helping in some way, I really appreciate you. Whether it's historically or right now, I absolutely adore you. And again, you know, if you do want to support the channel, I've got a Ko-fi account, so you can send me a coffee, like send me a coffee, or you know, I've got my membership, and with that, the sort of community membership, you get lots and lots of perks, including a much deeper dive into today's forecast. So yeah, that's all down below if you're interested. But anyway, these charts, I've brought up 3 charts to describe these two weeks that we're going through right now. So the first one is this one here with the total lunar eclipse in Virgo. And as I click through to the time when the sun goes into Aries, and then when the new moon in Aries comes up, what you'll see is the moon is moving around until it gets here. And I would love for you to just focus on this energy here, because this is where all the transformation's really going on for you right now. So this is the total lunar eclipse. That's how everything is moving at the time of the new years. We're going into the new year. And then this is where the moon is at the time of the new moon. So you see there's a massive focus in this part of the chart. You know, by this time, everything is in one half of the chart. That really doesn't happen that often. It's really, really unusual. So, yeah, this total lunar eclipse. Now, in terms of where it's happening for you, it's this part of your chart is linked into, I think, a lot of emotional baggage, but also shared visions and values, and I guess, like, if you're in a relationship, you know, like a marriage, or you're like committed to somebody, you have shared assets. Or if you're not married, you might have shared assets with a family member, you know, or, you know, it's this 8th house, as it's known, has a lot to do with everything that exists between two people or two entities. And it has a real theme of money and resources, and also the value that we put on our relationships. So, for instance, this is about you, and this is about all of your money and your resources and how you relate to yourself. Do you value yourself? This is about everyone else in your life, and this is about all the money that exists between you and your values on each other and judgments about each other. And so I see this as quite an ancestral place, because, you know, we have relationships with all of our family members and our partners, you know, and, you know, this does also show money that comes in, not just from our partners or families or friends, but it shows things, you know, money that we might owe, like in taxes, or, you know, mortgages and things like that, loans, you know. So it shows where we can also borrow money too. And so the fact that we've got this, or you've got this total lunar eclipse echoing this house, to me, this is one of the slightly more frustrating positions for this particular total lunar eclipse, because to me it feels like all things money, in particular all things money to do with everyone else's earnings and not necessarily yours, but all things to do with the resources that you're sharing are really really on your mind. It really feels like either you have to trust that everything's going to be okay, but maybe you don't quite trust the partner that you're managing everything with. You might not have enough, or they might not have enough, or you're trying to go through your accounts together and there's this kind of jumble of energy. So it feels quite uncomfortable. It doesn't feel, and here's the thing, because you're not in control of it. That's the thing that makes it so difficult, is the fact that there are these areas in our life where we co-create with other people, where we have relationships with other people. There are these areas where there's overlap, and with that overlap, there's no certainty, but there is growth and there is evolution. So it's an uncomfortable place. And so the full moon tends to bring everything to the surface. And so, any judgments that you have about each other and the way you're handling money are likely to come forwards at this time, or pressures externally seem to come up to remind you about the things that you might get upset about. This can be quite an upsetting house, but there's a much deeper psychological part to this house, and that I see is, the 8th is about transformation, from birth right the way through all the stages of life to death, and the sort of reincarnation or the resurrection. So it's a continuous story of, I was born, I grew, I learnt, I changed, I died, and so on and so forth. It's a continual cycle. And so what this also means to me is you are on the cusp of a really massive leap forwards. And there are probably things that are holding you back. Familiarity holds you back, and a fear of what's new also holds you back. And yet it's necessary for you to go this next step. And of course, as you contemplate the next evolution in your life, the next thing that you might need to shift or let go from, this full moon illuminates it all. And because, this is about the shared assets between people, it's also our shared vision and values and judgments of each other. So old issues to do with guilt, shame, blame, and anger. You might find that money issues have come up because you actually feel slightly ashamed of yourself, or you might have an old embarrassment, or, you feel guilty about something. And, that guilt transfers to, or translates into, poor habits for self-management, and I'm totally guilty of doing all of them. I'm pretty sure of that. So, this is a place where what we don't like about ourselves can sometimes come up and scare us. And this is the thing that I think can make a total lunar eclipse really quite scary. And that is, we see ourselves. And the circumstances coming up at this time allow us to see ourselves really clearly, and it can be terrifying. So yeah, there's that going on around this time. And so excuse me, the other side of this is, in particular in the last forecast, which you might have listened to, in the last forecast, I was talking about the sun coming into a conjunction with Saturn. And as we're starting this, in fact, the sun and Saturn are still connected for quite some time, and that's bringing up this feeling of seriousness, like I must get on, I'm going to work, I've got a great ethic, I'm going to be serious, I'm going to pay attention to all the things I need to have done, so I stop in this silly pattern. This is also going on in your second house to do with money. So the impulse to get really sorted out and to know exactly what's what and to feel quite grown up is really, really strong. Now is the time, Aquarius, where you can face yourself with I would say with some pride. You're clearing away the murk. And let's face it, Saturn is giving you some challenges. Most likely in the last couple of years, you have had some ups and downs, because Saturn really will show a bit of shortage if you're not really valuing what you're doing. And so you've been on a bit of a learning curve here. So, this is, I think, a deepening of what you're learning. And essentially what this really is, what it's all about, underneath the money, underneath the resources. It's really about self-trust and understanding yourself and knowing, actually, I'm okay, even with all of this, even with all these things that I might have been fooled into feeling ashamed about. Actually, I'm okay. I'm not wrong. I am completely okay. I'm not broken. I'm okay. I'm okay the way I am. And so I really think, there will be things here trying to pull you off the knowledge that you are okay. Now, as we go through this week, this I am okay is going to deepen, so the sun is going to come into a conjunction with the North Node. It's in that I am okay. I'm okay. I'm absolutely enough. That deepening with the North Node, I think is helping you say, I'm okay. And what this means is, because could you imagine if you were looking at your life from the perspective of, actually, everything is as it's meant to be. There's nothing I need to change about myself. I'm completely enough. If you had that freedom in yourself, how might you progress? How might your day go? How might your next coffee break go, or your next thought go? How different do you think your life would be if you lived it from that sense of, I'm actually okay. I'm really okay. It's nothing I need to change. I think your life would, if you carried on as is, or carried on with this belief that I'm okay, I trust myself, it would really lift your life up if you looked at it over a series of months. Your kind of current life and then this new life, they would really separate. There'd be quite a distance between them within a few months of having this new attitude. So this North Node conjunction, I think, is really encouraging you to recognize how you're okay, and recognize who you are at your core. It's helping you to recalibrate. And then the sun in a conjunction to Neptune, it's right in the last degree of Pisces, indicating it's the end of a story. And this is giving you this massive shot of intuition right at the end of this story. To me, it feels like you're poised, ready for a whole new life, a whole new way of living. So I'm really excited about that. I think that's really great. And, then the sun goes into Aries. And that's, the moon is really supportive at that particular time, which is really great. There's a lot of fantastic energy really supporting this sense of a new start. And then we go through the as the moon's coming into Capricorn, which is a very thoughtful position for you, where you're quite intuitive and absolutely tuning in. There's the conjunction with Venus, the Venus Cazimi at 2 degrees Aries. I mean, there's a change around with Venus. Venus is changing from being the evening star to the morning star, and she's going to become a lot more assertive and a lot more in her body. So this conjunction with Venus is really encouraging you to see how there are new possibilities. Now, I haven't really, I've spoken more about the second house, but not so much about the third. And this is where your being okay is moving forwards. The houses are always they are showing the progression of your identity, the progression of your life. And so to the level that you can feel good in yourself and feel I'm okay, I think you can go into the world. And this is this third house. You can go into the world, find out the rules of the world, learn the ABCs in the world, meet with people who are in your neighborhood, who are in your vibration. You become a community with each other. This is a feeling of knowing where you belong and feeling settled. And so the new part of this journey that you're going on right now, you're coming to the end of your old life so that you can create this new one. And this new one is based on a sense of belonging, on a sense of, I'm here, I'm meant to be here. So I think this is actually really describing a sense of destiny for you. Now, Venus and Mercury are going retrograde from this place, like this community, your locality, like where you are right now. And it's bringing it back to your self-esteem and your awareness of being okay or not being okay. And during the rest of these retrogrades, you'll be learning more and more about what you need to know and what you need to remember about yourself. So that from the 7th of April, when Mercury goes direct, and on the 13th of April, when Venus goes direct, you can be moving towards that feeling of, okay, I know I'm okay, and this is what it leads to. And this is where a lot of the focus over this next year is going to be, in this third house of your chart. You know, it's really encouraging you to see that anywhere where you're changing, there has to be people and energy around you to bounce off, to interact with, and that your evolution right now is really linked into the give and take, the marketplace of where you're living. It's really sort of transactional. It's really busy. It's really you really become part of something. There really is that sense of belonging. So all of that is changing for you, Aquarius. And it's interesting as well, because the sign of Aquarius are known for their high-minded tribes, you know, and known for being good eggs, but they're also known for being a little bit independent as well, and, you know, keeping a little bit of a distance, or maybe staying at a higher thought level and not necessarily in a grounded level. And what I really see going forward for you is that there's this deeper invitation to connect with people at a much deeper level, and a much more physical level, at a real level, where you're really like doing things with people. You know, this to me feels like quite an invitation to you. You know, and of course, if we go back to the total lunar eclipse, you know, those energies that were coming up at the eclipse that I said at the start, you know, they were reminding you of the difficulties that happen in your relationships to do with money and shared resources, and the values that you have, the judgments that you have on each other. And it's there to help you identify where you've got some shame or guilt or difficult feelings to work through. Well, of course, if you've worked through those, as the new moon in Aries comes along and this new invitation of more of a community energy comes alive, you know, that's not possible if you're harboring all these guilt, shames, blames, and angers. That's really hard for you to move forwards. But if you've cleared those and cleared resentment and cleared, you know, you're coming back into a deeper trust. You're coming into an excitement about life, and a feeling that you're okay. And those two thoughts will absolutely transform how you are right now. Last couple of things I want to share then. Mars in a square to Chiron is interesting. You know, Mars is showing up in the 6th house. No doubt the recent Mars retrograde from December the 6th until the 21st, was it? Or 4th? I can't remember, the 20 something of February, that would have marked a time when you were probably feeling quite incapacitated, possibly a little off color, but definitely not able to keep up with all the things that you'd planned to do, and keep busy. So I imagine there's a real sense of relief that you can sort of move forwards again after feeling quite stuck for a while. But the square that it's making to Chiron in the 3rd house, to me, is suggesting that there's some past pain. And in particular, past pain about community living, or like being an important member of a community. I think the internet has probably helped in many respects, because we've been able to host everything and interact with everyone online, and have a feeling of separation, even though we're real human beings that do connect, even when we're thousands of miles away from each other. But the anxiety that might come up with real life living relationships has been mitigated a little bit. It's been easier for people to be a bit more remote from each other. Well, any pain or existing pain or worrying, any pain point that has come from, you know, when you've been too close to people, I think that's what's being worked on right now. And, you know, I see that this particular tension around the 26th, 27th, you know, will maybe come to a head or come into your consciousness, but it's there to be released and let go of, you know, so you don't have to have shame about a bullying or someone being too strong in your community, or not feeling strong, feeling vulnerable in the crowd. Hopefully you'll be able to get that back into balance for yourself. As you come to the end of the week, this Venus conjunct Neptune it's just beautiful in Pisces. It's really there to give you faith and to know, to trust yourself even more. And of course, the more you trust yourself, the more you are able to recognize that it's okay to trust somebody else. Because if you can't trust yourself, it's impossible to trust other people. You either understand trust and can feel trust, or you can't. It's very difficult to have full trust without any for yourself. So I really think that's a helpful thing to be considering. And as you're coming into the new moon in Aries, there will be another 2-week forecast by that point, but this is really marking quite an integral shift forwards for you. So there you go, Aquarius. I hope you have found that illuminating and helpful for this period ahead. Last thing, I've already recorded and posted the relationship and connection forecast for Aquarius based on these charts, and also the career and ambition forecast for Aquarius as well. And so that's something that I offer people who have joined my Feel Good Astrology community on School. If you do want those extra deep dives into your sign and all the other signs as well, you've got access to those with this membership. So you can look up your friends and family as well, which could be quite helpful. But if you do want this deeper dive every 2 weeks on every new and full moon, and also a community hangout where we can answer questions and learn together, then it might be something that you choose to invest in. And if you are interested in that, all the details are below. But anyway, have a fantastic time and hopefully catch up with you real soon. Lots and lots of love to you. Happy full moon. Bye for now.